That's right, that's right.
Mark,
Let me do that.
I see you, Roshi.
what windmills are you banning these days?
You know, there's, there you go.
A lot of them?
It's like the Matrix, it's too fast, moving the Matrix, it's too fast and furious, you can't see.
I love it.
So clear. I did just my Don Quixote, I did just want to talk Don Quixote, so I'll let you know.
You have a sidekick?
I do it.
You need a sidekick?
Yeah.
You fly
And a horse.
That's my sidekick.
So you stay over there, stay over there.
Breakout rooms closing in 1 minute.
Someone called.
Yeah, we'll do that.
June?
I got you.
Dude, love you.
Oh, it's out there. Got it.
I'm normally see for you, so perfect. Just maybe closer to the center of the action.
What's your name? Everyone,
Good morning.
Good morning.
we are beginning.
You're coming back slowly but surely.
Will you put that on
Yeah, I'm gonna fix it.
the view so I can see everyone? You can pin it, then you can change the view.
Okay.
Oh, good morning, good morning. Is it a good morning?
Yes.
For some, it might be a good morning. For some, it might not. So, you've all come to hear me say something. I took some notes in case I don't know what to say and the silence gets too uncomfortable, and then I'll say something that'll make you feel like it was worth coming to hear. Say something that sounds like what a Zen master would say. I don't really want to give a talk today. I'm not sure I ever want to give a talk again. I would much prefer to have a conversation. And I have noticed sometimes when I give talks, and they end, there's like a long silence afterwards. Like maybe it was too profound. You know? But maybe I didn't invite you into the conversation. I don't know how to do this exactly, but I would like to learn how to invite you into having a conversation with me here, now. And I think probably my overriding experience right now is one of uncertainty. And probably no one wants to come here to give a talk on uncertainty. That's kind of what I am experiencing these days. So the title of this so-called talk is Life Finds a Way. What does it mean? What does it mean to you that life finds a way? That could mean a lot of different things to different people. Finding a way. You know, to a young couple just starting out their lives, wanting to start a family, can't afford to buy a home, they're working hard in an economy where it's hard to make enough money to buy a home because the homes are too expensive. To a single mother struggling to raise children, finding a way might mean something very different to you and I. What is finding a way? You know, we say entering the way, as if there were the truth. But what is the way? Well, we can talk about qualities of the way, and we can talk about certain characteristics we might expect someone who is following the way. But is there the way? Or is there your way? Or the way this morning that you find you're on or not on? Do we have to be on the way? Where are we going? I took some notes so I can say something that sounds intelligent and so on. So Goethe said, traveling is hindered by arrival. That sounds kind of Zen, doesn't it? Okay. Who can we be together here now? What can we say to each other this morning? What can't we say? What is possible? Who am I? I'm whoever I am with you this morning. And I suppose whoever you are with me and with everyone here this morning. And what is possible? What is possible for us to communicate this morning? And what possibilities are we not allowing to be here this morning? Oh, we had a dust storm a couple of days ago. Great opportunity to make some great photos and put them up on social media sites. Wow, look at this photo. So cool. So cool. So I went and looked I Googled it the next day to see what the cause of the dust storm was. No one said anything about what the cause might be, or even had an idea. Just strong winds. I don't know. I remember watching a documentary on the Dust Bowl. You ever seen that documentary? Happened almost 100 years ago, in the Midwest, here in Oklahoma area. And apparently, farmers during World War I were growing wheat, and the price of wheat was very high, so they made a lot of money growing wheat. And then the war ended. The war ended, and the price of wheat went down. So to compensate for that, they started plowing like crazy to plant more wheat so they could make more money. And the plowing, when you plow the earth like we do in industrial agriculture, you're tearing up the topsoil. So you're actually tearing the structure of the topsoil apart. And so the topsoil becomes dust, dirt, and it can blow away easily when a strong wind comes along. And we do indeed have a lot of industrial agriculture around us in Chicago. So it occurred to me that might be the one cause of the dust storm. That just seemed to me like a very cool thing. Now, I don't know how to talk about what I'm experiencing these days, what I'm learning. I don't know how to talk about it. And I have to find a way to have this conversation with you about something that seems to me to be important. And I noticed a shift in myself at the election last November. Really, big shift. And I, probably as all of you were doing. I was following media, following news. It's very political. There were all kinds of predictions about what was going to happen if one person got elected or the other. It's going to be the apocalypse if your side lost. And I noticed that when the election, after the election, I could not watch. I generally am kind of a news junkie and watch news, and I couldn't watch it anymore. Either side. And I have no desire to have any discussion here this morning about partisan politics, so please, let's not, I'm not inviting that conversation. I'm not, but, and the reason why I'm stumbling, trying to figure out what to say how to talk and have a conversation this morning is, I got really tired of the kind of conversations I would have with people because they were so binary. And if you took one side, and you took the other side, one person would start to sound like Lenin, and the other one would start to sound like Friedman. Who was that guy that did economics?
Milton Friedman.
Milton Friedman. And you'd be like that, you know. And there wasn't anything in the middle. I found this very, actually really upsetting to me. I don't want to be on either side. I don't want to be put in that box that we put ourselves in. I'm guessing you don't want to be put in any box like that either. But we are indeed putting ourselves in boxes all the time. We live in a culture which is reductive, based on an industrial revolution and modernity that is biased for the individual. Right? Very unecological way of thinking, very un-Zen-like way of thinking as well. I had this real double bind when we started the Zen Center because, you know, we didn't have a lot of money and we didn't have deep pockets, so we couldn't make any big, and we were kind of dying on the vine doing traditional Zen because it's not easy to sell. It's not even easy to talk about. What I'm discovering this morning. So I developed a kind of method through mindfulness. I actually developed a curriculum. I'm pretty good at developing methods. My father was an engineer. I kind of know how to do this. And you know, I worked with a really wonderful man, Archie Mack, who helped us create a brand and market. And I wanted to do kind of poetry and marketing. He said, no, marketing is prose. You got to dumb it down. And you know, the golden rule of marketing is what's in it for me. And that's how we created the Zen Center. And that was a big double bind. And over the years, it became increasingly obvious that the mindfulness we were teaching was not quite what was being taught in much of the culture. It's often understood as McMindfulness. But then it becomes hard to sell a class on mindfulness if you're not telling people what they're going to get out of it, how it's going to improve you. Is our practice about improving ourselves in some way? If you think of an ecology, of an ecosystem, and all the creatures in it, of which we are a part, does it make any sense to think of an earthworm working to be a better earthworm? That doesn't seem to make any sense at all. So is it possible for us to find a new way forward where we are having a different kind of conversation that doesn't get triggered by all these trigger words. Immigration, trigger. Refugee, trigger. You hear the word refugee and you think of some poor idiot that's coming to our country. Could be a physicist. Could be a doctor. You have all these stereotypes that go with the trigger words. And it shuts down any possibility for anything new to arise. Well, how does anything new come into a conversation? Because most of our conversations are scripted based on something we've already heard, something that we read, something that you heard me say, or you heard someone else say, and they were an expert, quote unquote, in whatever their field was. And mindfulness is important, not because it's going to make you a better person, but because attention is important. How we attend to what we are doing is important, and we say that living a Zen-inspired life is similar, speaking of metaphors now, to the Greek word eudaimonia, which means to thrive. So how do we thrive in a world that's kind of insane? Full of double binds. You know what a double bind is? It was created by Gregory Bateson many years ago. You're in a situation where you can't, whatever you do, either choice you make, you're going to lose. So, mother tells her son, Johnny, I want you to be more independent. And then Johnny does something independent, and the mother says to Johnny, Johnny, don't you love me? That's a double bind. Your girlfriend or boyfriend asks you, don't you love me? They're already putting you in a double bind, because if you say, I love you, it's insincere because they already asked you. And if you say, I don't love you, then you don't love me. So, and if we could train our perception to begin to appreciate the complexity of who we are and the world we're living in, I think we would see things very differently than we do right now. And it is, I'm finding this challenging, to say the least, to perceive the world ecologically. Not easy to do. I remember when we had the pandemic, there's something useful about traveling, going to another country, to Italy. You go into another culture where they do things differently, there are different codes, different rules, a whole different, unspoken mores and ways of doing things, different values, different food, new language. And that can be very helpful because I think in many ways we are kind of stuck in our culture. And this notion that if you're enlightened, you're going to be somehow transcend your culture I think that is very delusional and very arrogant to think that we would be able to actually be above the cultural stories and assumptions and things we are swimming in on a daily basis. You don't think that's so? Is it not almost easier to imagine the end of our species than to imagine the end of capitalism? What does that say about us? What does that say about what success means to us in our culture? What does that say about finding a way means according to our culture and what we've learned? So if someone is acting out, they're depressed, maybe they're an addict, and they have a job which is sucking the soul out of them. They go to this job every day. And, you know, they're the canary in the coal mine, and they get sent to see therapy, right? You get to go to therapy. And the therapist makes them normal again. So they can go back into the same system that made them abnormal. That's a double bind. Now, Buddhism is very, I'm talking, how come no one's asked raising me? Yeah, I'm going to Let's find a question here. Yeah.
I have a burning question.
Yeah, speak up really loud.
Okay, so if this dust bowl the other day, we were actually talking, we didn't witness it, but if it's agriculture, which I agree, I mean, there's the notion that agriculture is kind of the newer thing, right? And but if this is a problem, we've been doing that agriculture forever. How come we don't have more dust bowls?
Well, that's a very good question. It hasn't been forever, but it's
Well,
since the Industrial Revolution, we have been farming in this way, which is completely unsustainable, growing monocropping.
right.
It's a very good question, and maybe, I don't know, maybe we haven't had strong enough winds yet to create it, or maybe they plowed more in the spring for some reason. I have no idea. But I do have some reason to infer that there might be some relationship between this dust storm and the way that we are farming. But I really don't know. That's just from what I can, you know, monocropping is a very unecological way to grow food. You have no diversity in the plants, which means the plants are not resilient, and they're very susceptible to disease, and so then you have to use insecticides to protect them, and the soil is being denuded and depleted. The topsoil is being destroyed, and some of it lost. The other day, some of that had to be topsoil. It's dust, it's dirt. Where does dirt come from? It comes from the earth. So you're destroying the topsoil, so then you have to use a lot of fertilizers to unnaturally make the soil fertile, which it would be if we were actually farming in a generative way that was sustainable, not for the most part. Yeah, so
It seems like there might be a shift coming. Do you feel that shift of more interest in regenerative farming?
there are people doing it. Yeah, I don't know if it's a shift or not, but I know that there is increasingly people doing generative farming, and I've watched some good videos online about it. Yeah.
I think two things. Number one, there's, the industrial farming is a man-made problem, and during the dust storm and the storms of the last couple of days, I sat out back. I have a little pond out my back patio, watching the wind coming in, and I tried to, and the storms coming through, and to me, I noticed it as that's a function as well of climate change, which is another man-made issue. And these storms, to me, are a combination of the farming, the climate change, and it was just interesting. I woke up yesterday after the last storm and realized I had kept my patios open so I didn't have to have my heat or air on. And all of my furniture was covered through the screen with this dust. my car, and there was no dust being blown up in our neighborhood. There's no, so it's coming from long places away, it's being carried. The other piece I just wanted to say is what you're talking about reminds me a lot of Aldous Huxley, A Brave New World. And the hero of that was the savage. And what, when you think of a savage, it comes with all of those descriptions, but the way he was described in the book is he was the last analog human. Everybody else had bought into the digital, entertain yourself, numb yourself, get yourself high, ignore the situation you're in with distraction. And the savage was the last free thinker. And that has been on my mind a lot recently.
Reminds me of, I went to Europe when I was much younger. I haven't been there for a long time. I've got more responsibilities and things, but I remember traveling around Europe. I was in Spain and Madrid, and went to the museum there, took trains up to Paris, and I kind of hung out in Europe for a while, and I noticed that the cars were smaller. And I didn't really get this till I came back to the States, and I realized, and this is a long time ago, but I realized that the news we had was different than what was being done in Europe, and the news we had was entertaining. And it wasn't that way in Europe at that time. It's probably, I don't know what it's like now, but just noticing that when you go outside your comfort zone of your own habits, of your own culture, and you go somewhere else, you get and then you come back, you get a little, just like a double take about your culture. But man, the grocery stores are so big, there's so many choices. There's cereal, how do you buy something in this place? The cars are so big here. I remember in the pandemic, one of the best experiences I had during the pandemic was Christine made a video of an opera she created and had people sing. You want to say something about that, Christine?
Thank you.
Yeah.
The composer, a friend of mine, David Shenton, and I, as a librettist, took the stories of 6 healthcare workers from around the world. They were composite characters, and we created an opera that was released, and all the performers, the 6 characters, each recorded their parts separately, and they were all across the state. We had an international choir of 33 singers. We put the chorus number together, and it was a series of basically 3 Zoom calls where these 6 healthcare workers from around the world would share sort of their stories about what was going on the ground and how they had this sort of safe space to talk about it where they felt they couldn't share with other people for whatever reasons in the greater community.
It was terrific. That was one of the highlights of the pandemic for me. Because we were all so enclosed, and then you did this beautiful opera of people around the world singing in their own languages.
Is it still available?
It is.
You want to give me that link and I'll put it up on our social?
Sure, I will. Thank you.
It's terrific. Yeah. So we live in a culture which is in the habit of reducing things down to things that is based on pretty much an industrial revolution metaphor of a machine. We see parts. So everything, the habit of this culture, and it's part of the water we're swimming in. I don't believe any of us are free of this. First, everything is about. First, you identify the problem. Then you learn all you can about the problem. Then you have to respond to the problem in order to make a solution. to step away from that habit of thinking might be the most revolutionary thing we could do at this time. And if we were able to even do that, we would likely be misunderstood, and it would not be easy to say. We now go to the grocery store to go shopping. We used to go to the grocery store and go shopping. Big difference. When I tell you I'm going to the store to go shopping, now you're going to ask me, well, how long are you going to be? What are you going to buy? How much money are you going to spend? When are you going to be home? The language we use is completely saturated with this habit of reducing things down to things. And it is having a huge impact on our well-being, on our environment, on our education, on our economics, on our organizations, on our communities, on our families. The poly crisis, as some are speaking of it now, it's not a single issue like global warming, it's many issues. And it's not abstract. We're all experiencing it in our families, at work, in our relationships, in our elbows. We may not be able to articulate exactly what it is, but it's a sense that something is not going well, and we don't even know how to pay attention to it. And we certainly don't know how to talk about it. Because talking about it is the same habit that's creating the problem in the first place. So you have, when there is a crisis like we are facing, and it is urgent, there's no doubt about it, and it's hard to pay attention to because it's overwhelming. And if I started to quote you a lot of factoids, it would be depressing. Because the factoids are cold data. And that's not going to help us. We need to find a way to be in relationship with each other that is alive.
There's another thing, I think what you laid out makes a lot of sense, but I think it even goes further, because when you have a problem, particularly in our society, and coming out of a corporate environment, and Martina could probably speak to that, you always have to find, well, whose fault is it now? Okay?
Yeah.
But taking that further, okay, it's the other team, okay? And then it becomes a sport. It's a combination of a spectator sport and a participatory sport. Okay, I'm on the team that's right, and you're on the team that's wrong.
Right.
It's no different than the Coliseum. Are you rooting for the lion, or are you rooting for the gladiator? Okay, and you pick a side, and you root, and you keep doing it, and the entire process, the solution is not the destination. Okay, the process is the problem. And the only way to respond is to not play.
Well, play in another way.
Play by different rules.
Play in a different context. The only way through a double bind is not to match it, but to meet it from a different context. And then there's some cost. But if we don't learn how to move through a double bind, it will just tear us apart. Which is what these double binds are doing. Yeah, Christine?
One of the things that I'm struggling with right now is the degree to which I allow people that are having very different opinions from me, what's going on in the world, the degree to which I when we talk about circles of intimacy in our life, like who are the people the closest to you?
Yeah.
Who are the people you let have the keys to your house? Who are the people that you share details? Who are your coworkers?
Yeah.
Who are your, and to find, which is not something I've never really been good at, because I like to see a little bit more flow, but to perhaps, just for my protection, to see it more in spheres or circles of what am I gonna have a relationship with this person, and where is that boundary gonna exist? Whereas maybe normally I would have been more transparent, and to find an element of honoring them, but needing to keep sort of a boundary of protection for my own triggers and my own mental health and my own safety and my own values.
Yeah. It totally makes sense to have, we talk so much about not having fear. From an ecological point of view, having some fear is actually good. You domesticate animals so that they don't have any fear, and you put them out in the wild and they won't survive. They've lost all those defense mechanisms and the quality of paying attention that would allow them to survive in the wild. So it makes totally, in one context, you're going to have a boundary that's not permeable, because that's the way to be safe. In another context, it's going to be more permeable because you don't feel threatened by it. So where is the edge of yourself and your family and your community and this is all context specific. Again, just the way we think is so abstract and removed from what we're actually living in relationships. So I'll give you an example of Buddhism. It's very common to think, oh, well, Buddha talked about suffering, the first noble truth, so that must be universal. Really? Is that what the Buddha taught, that suffering is universal? No, I don't think so. That doesn't seem to be a very useful teaching, that suffering is context specific. We do this with all kinds of things. We do it with hunger. Well, hunger is universal. Part of the human and animal condition to be hungry. But it's not. It's completely context specific. A hawk, when a hawk is hungry, he's looking for a mouse some way in the prairie or the field. He's flying, looking, he has certain eyesight that's designed to see UV light so he can see them. You actually can see that mouse droppings better, and you can see where they are. The hawk's hunger is very different than a deer's hunger, who's looking for soft shoots to eat, or leaves on trees. And their hunger is very different from some Chicagoan that's going to go out for lunch today and get on the subway and go to his favorite Pizza Hut, or, get a Chicago hot dog, make sure he doesn't put ketchup on it. Seagull got that hot dog. I wouldn't care if it was hot dog, if it was ketchup on it or not. Hunger is context specific. Our suffering arises in how we respond to a situation. So I think we need a new kind of three poisons for our time. The three we have are pretty good: greed, anger, and ignorance. They cover a lot of bases, but when we other people, as you're talking about in the corporate world, and we do all over the place, then it seems to me there's another three poisons that arise pretty in a kind of linear way almost from that, which is what follows from othering somebody is fear. And what follows from that is hatred. And what follows from that is brutality. We are living in this moment. This is the world we are living in. How are we going to be in this world? with integrity. We're all soaked in blood. We're all part of a colonial culture that has raped and ruined indigenous cultures for hundreds of years. We don't keep any of our trees. I'm not sure about the noble savage. That sounds a little romantic, but yeah. So when we're faced with a crisis like we are, we develop a crisis epistemology. You reach for something to fix it. It's just what we do. The urgency, and it's out of the best of intentions. You reach for something, you pull something out of the complexity, and then you try to engineer something to fix it. We approach something that's complex in a linear way, and there's no way we're going to heal complex systems or eco-environments with linear thinking. Complex ecosystems aren't linear. They all kinds of stuff moving all the time, changing. So in fact, Kyle White developed a term. He's a Potawatomi professor at the University of Michigan. Do you know him, Mark? I think he teaches anthropology or something like that. He developed the term kinship epistemology. That we could develop a epistemology that's based on what's happening to our community, what's happening to our kin, our relationships. It's a very different way, and very hard to do that. To think in that way when the urgency of the problem is in your face, and you are going to reach, you're going to pull something out and try to fix it, and that's not going to fix it. No. Let's fix the school system. We'll make a better curriculum. The school system is part of the economic system. It's part of the political system. It's part of the family system. It's part of the colonial history. It's part of the Industrial Revolution. Still, we're training kids to work like the world was 50 years ago. So you say, oh, I'm going to make a new curriculum. Is that going to... They're still going to go into the world from the school. The school is training them to go into the world and get that work. To be in the factory. Pass the IQ test, whatever. I have a story about how one way I found a way in life, and it's Bernie talked a lot about the value of doing plunges as a practice, and the idea of a plunge is you go to a new situation, like a new country. You put yourself in a different context from the one you're comfortable in, and everything is new, and you don't know how to behave. You don't know what to expect. All the scripts you have of comfort and habits in your familiar culture don't apply here. You have to improvise. You have to you have to listen. You have to watch people. How are they doing it? How do they behave when they have a meal? How do they talk? How close are they when they talk? Do they touch a lot? Different cultures have different boundaries about where you can be when you're having a conversation. Some cultures like to be very close. Brazilians and Italians, they like to touch. Yeah, they're gregarious. Brazilian comes to America and it's like culture shock. So Bernie, being the maverick that he was, came up with this notion that if we took plunges, like a street retreat is a plunge, because you put yourself in an environment, you don't have the normal habits that give you the illusion that you're controlling anything. and you kind of have to rely on your wits and your, whatever, you have to make up stuff to see if it works, and make sure you get a meal, you show up at the homeless shelter, and make sure you get there at the right time, and where you're gonna sleep and not get arrested. It's a plunge. The first time you ever did a 7-day session here, and probably we weren't using Oreo, but some of you might, that's a plunge. You've never done it before, you don't know what's gonna happen. Somebody wearing black robes gonna hit me with a stick? Someone gonna shout at me? When I do orioke, will I do it wrong? And will everyone be like, staring at me if I'm the last one to finish? Everyone has wrapped their bowls up and I'm still struggling to tie that stupid knot on the top of the bowl. It's a plunge. It's uncomfortable. And that's the kind of, when we're in that kind of context, we learn a lot by being uncomfortable. So June, Roshi, and me had the good fortune to go to Auschwitz twice. Ken, you've been there. And this must have been the second one we did. I lost track, but I remember, Auschwitz is a big experience, and we were there. It was an interfaith plunge in Auschwitz, and boy, I could not have been there by myself. It would have been really awful, and it was still really dark, and we were there with many other people from all over the world, telling stories, different experiences and perspectives based on, their country, their culture, their religion. And at the end, we were somewhere else outside of Auschwitz. We had a meeting, and at the end, Bernie said, "Now what are you going to do?" At the time, June and me still lived in Hawaii, and I told Bernie almost facetiously, "Well, Bernie, I'm going to go home to Hawaii." But that didn't satisfy me, that answer. Auschwitz was a big experience, and it was dark. So I went home, and that, as we do in our tradition, I had the good fortune of approaching dilemmas in my life sometime as a koan. It isn't to be solved quickly, which is good. And I went home to Hawaii, and I had this question: what am I going to do? Didn't know, but the question was important. It mattered. There was something that mattered about the question, so it stayed there. And I kind of said, I want to bear witness to something, but I don't want to be in politics. I don't want to carry signs. I don't want to protest. I don't want to go on a march. I want to bear witness to life, because there was so much darkness in Auschwitz. It's like, I realized I want to get my hands in the earth. I want to plant a seed and grow something and watch it. I want to help create life. And so I made a proposal. At the time we were running the Zen Center of Hawaii, and we lived in Waimea, which is a small town on the Big Island. And there was a private school, Parker School, in the middle of our town, and they had a big plot of land that they weren't using. So I developed this proposal. I went to their board, and I made this proposal. I said, let our Zen Center do a project doing a community garden on this land. We don't want to pay anything for it. We're not going to pay you any rent. We're just going to make a really beautiful community garden that's going to help. It's going to be of service to everyone in the community. And to my shock and surprise, they said yes. And so then we started clearing this land. It took about 2 months. I almost killed myself using my neighbor's tractor. I overturned the tractor. And we started the garden, and with a mission of modeling sustainable agriculture. We were doing biointensive farming, bringing in no outside, ingredients. The only thing I brought in from outside was chicken shit. And there was a chicken farm down the hill from Waimea. And they liked what we were doing. And anytime I wanted to, I could take my funky truck down there, and I would park my truck in their place, and they'd come over with a big a tractor with hot chicken shit. And my truck's here, would dump it in the back, and the truck would dump this. I was like an easy rider, and my truck's just full of chicken shit. And now I have to get back up the hill to where the community garden was. So and there's only one road to Waimea on the Big Island from that location. And it's close to the coast, so a lot of tourists use that road to go through. And I'm driving up that hill, and I couldn't go very fast because the truck was full of chicken shit. And I'm lazy, I didn't bother to tie it down or anything, so the chicken shit. And there's a big line of tourists behind me in their cars. They can't pass me, and the chicken was going. So I was never happier in my life than when I was farming. I'd come home, it was muddy and dirty, and I was planting things, and I got in touch with the moon and the cycles and when's the best time to plant seeds. And I remember the first time I harvested potatoes. I'm not a farmer. I've always grown gardens, but I didn't really farming. So I remember pulling up, I think they were fingerling potatoes. Well, I was like a 5-year-old at Easter, it's like, they were like Easter eggs, it's like, wow, this is what potatoes look like. So I would often bring kids into the garden and have them harvest the potatoes, and I had the same reaction. I'd say, where are potatoes coming from? The supermarket. No, they come here. Pull up that plant and see. And they pull it up, and they have the same reaction as I had. Wow. So our mission was to model sustainable agriculture. We didn't grow crops, we grew the topsoil. And we grew topsoil. And the second part of the mission was to model diversity, both biologically and culturally. And then the third was to celebrate community, to nurture and grow community. And I think we did all three. And we wrote grants, and we were successful. And eventually we were so successful that I had to administer the whole thing and hire people, and then all the fun went out of it from that, because now I have to administer. I didn't start the thing to administer it, I started to farm. That's what I wanted to do. So it lasted 3 years, and then we left Hawaii shortly after that. I tell you that story as an example, and I bet you have stories like that in your life, where you've experienced something and it had some profound impact on you, and you don't know until maybe years later that you're doing something because of that pain or that suffering or that what at the time seemed like a failure or something you did wrong, or maybe you did something wrong, and years later you find you're doing something else that came because of that in some way. I think that's kind of what I mean by life finds a way. But just like ecosystems, things take time to grow. We're not used to that kind of time. We're used to digital time now. But we're not digital, we're analog. Anyone have a story? Does that remind anyone of a story?
I actually just read a really interesting post from somebody. He said that when he was a teenager, his stepmother said he would not amount to anything.
Yeah.
That he was going to become a janitor, play his guitar, in the basement with rats. And that's all he was going to amount to. He then said, I wrote a song about it that was played over 3 million times on FM radio. The song was Little Miss Can't Be Wrong by the Spin Doctors. But without that trauma that he was able to process, that success could never have manifested. So to me, we have to look at, just like I had to at Auschwitz, which for me was very personally disturbing, if for no other reason, it was 3 weeks after the war with Israel and Hamas started in Gaza.
Wow.
And anybody who knows the history of Auschwitz knows Israel basically was founded as a knee-jerk reaction by Lord Balfour after World War II because of Auschwitz. And now it had gone full circle, and Israel was now the aggressor. And I was having a horrible time with that as that was going on. But for me, the entire thing is how going back and then bearing witness to myself. And that's where this community for me has been my lifeline.
Yeah, we have a hard time with nuance, especially when social media doesn't do nuance. Political conversations aren't about nuance, they're about winning the argument. Nothing comes out of that. Nothing will come out of those conversations. So I see the time is coming. I don't know. I hope we can have more conversations about complexity and how we might begin to perceive that in our world that is so good at decontextualizing that. And let me tell another story. I don't have enough time for everything here. Communication is sacred. It really is sacred. And Gregory Bateson, who I had the good fortune to have a class with in the mid-70s, the first year Naropa started, during World War II, he was in England, and the British didn't know what to do with him, so the Americans hired Gregory to go to Asia and intercept Japanese communications and change them slightly so that it would mix up the Japanese army. So like I said, the communications said, we're the Japanese army here and the Allies are 10 miles away. He would change that communication to say they're 20 miles away. So they'd be waiting longer than they should have, and it created, in a wartime environment, when you have information that is not accurate like that, it's demoralizing and it creates distrust in the ranks. And he did this for the whole war. And he came back to the States after the war really depressed, because even though he knew he was doing it for a good cause, he also knew he was doing something fundamentally at odds with the integrity and the sacred nature of communication. And he tried to commit suicide. Fortunately, he didn't succeed. Communication is sacred. And I'm afraid the way we are communicating now is we decontextualize things. Everyone does it to spin, create propaganda. And when we do that, we are harming ourselves. And we do it so much now that it's normal. We don't really think about it. So we're living in a 24/7-hour news cycle where we are reacting immediately to something, but we're not hearing the whole story. We're hearing a piece of it. It's been decontextualized. That's all right. That's what what floats your boat. Yeah, but what we are doing in communication is having an impact on us on all kinds of levels. It's causing us to distrust our institutions, people, leaders, organizations, education, healthcare system. Oh, don't get me started. So, maybe I'll read a poem and we could close it. I'm sorry we ran out of time. I really would prefer to have him come. I find I'm still talking a lot. And, perhaps in the future we can have more of a conversation. I really think we need to find a new way forward, and the moment is requiring us to do this, and we have to pay attention, and it's not easy, and it's going to involve theory and epistemology and rigor about how we are thinking or how we are knowing anything. I don't think we're used to doing this, and we're going to need both science and the humanities, and so I will do a poem. This is by Gina Perot, called Descend. There are things you can only learn on your knees, or in a storm, or when the cracks in the foundation of this modern world open a chasm of uncertainty beneath your feet, your discontent with what has been named normal is both grief and longing for what your mind has forgotten, but your body remembers. You can feel it in the way a child's laughter disrupts your commitment to what is appropriate and makes space for foolishness and magic. If you can feel it in the way that water has taught you how to be a vessel and how to spill, and you trace your lineage all the way back to salt, the same that now stains your face with both sadness and laughter, excites your tongue and protects your prayers, you are dysporic, ecological, Poland, a vast territory of many wild bodies melting into each other, dressed up as human, simultaneously living and dying, shaping and dismantling, filling up and boiling over. Ashes to ashes, stardust to bone. What language do you breathe in? What is the mother tongue for that which twists and contorts your body, wringing oceans from your skin? The gravity that pulls you down to your knees, forehead to ground, broken open at the altar of all you've lost and how much you've loved. Can we fall apart together? Make a commitment to search for the truth, but promise to never find it. Like myths and stories, be the cartograph for what is both primordial and brand new, because the present moment is promiscuous like that. Compost ourselves down into the dirt beneath the dirt, and tend the canophic embers that light the ancient fires in our bellies. When the fault line's open and your mind is grasping and you don't know where to go from here, prostrate. Trade rapture for rupture. Let yourself spill and descend. Thank you, everyone. Hope you have a good Sunday.
Thank you.
Hope it wasn't too depressing.
house also has versus itself. But she said, no, it doesn't make sense.
That's a good one.
Loss of my daughter, again, and I said, wait, is it, the grief is not a loss. Grief is your process of love of the person who's no longer here. But I'm sure there's an interesting perspective, but it's how we perceive